Good evening, everyone. I, Mrs. Vaishali Chauhan, State Coordinator of Maharashtra Indology Foundation, Delhi, NCR, come up with new topic: Silent Voices of Women of Freedom Struggle of India. Erudite Dr. Meher Jyoti Sangre will throw light on the topic. She held chair as head of the history department from SNDT Women's University, Mumbai, for 3 years from September 18 to September 2021. Dr. Meher Jyoti Sangre scholarly completed studies in two streams. In science, she completed biomedical technology and did PhD in history. She has co-edited a book entitled as Historiography, Past and Present. Dr. Meherjyoti Sangle's research has been acknowledged by the World Scientist and Indian University ranking 2020-21 for her published research articles. She published 38 articles. She is recipient of the Universal Teacher Award by Lincoln University College, Malaysia, in Cambodia, 2019, and International Teacher Award Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan Adarsh Shikshak Sanman, 2016, plus national and international awards on Best Poster Presentation and Best Research Paper on her name. She held chairs nationally and internationally. I welcome you, Dr. Meherjyoti Sangliji. My appeal to audiences, please log in to Indology Foundation's YouTube channel and subscribe. Now, I would like to invite Lalit Mishra ji. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaisali. Dear audience, students, and Team Indology Foundation. Today is a great day for us, for we have with us a distinguished historian, Dr. Meher Jyoti Shangle from SNDT Women University, Mumbai. She is to enlighten us on a great topic which is very close to my heart: silent voices of women and their participation in Indian freedom struggle movement. Dear friends, not much is known on this topic. No comprehensive work is available for a reference, providing sufficient light to the contribution of Indian women to better for India's freedom. We have a flood of feminist activists in India, but not a single constructive work to preserve the memory of such women freedom fighters is ever done by such activists, which is a point to be noted. Therefore, you need to watch this video to the last minute. You will get amazed having known the kind of sacrifices Indian women have done for the independence of our country, the Bharat. Also, the kind of sufferings they incurred on themselves, on their families. Before calling Honorable Dr. Mehar Jyoti to begin her lecture, I would like to re-emphasize a few things which I gathered from Dr. Mehar Jyoti's introduction made by Vaisali ji. You know, Dr. Mehar Jyoti blends streams of both science and history. She is a BTech in biomedical engineering and MA and PhD in Indian history. Such a unique proposition. The topic of her PhD was also very interesting, which is women's healthcare and women physician in the Bombay Presidency, right from 1886 to 1947. That means since the very early stage of medical education in India till the independence. Of course, she has received many awards that you have come to know already from the introduction given by Vaishali ji, and also 38 research articles to her credit, which is an enormous number, and talks about the scholarship. Dear friends, before we begin, I would like to remind you one thing, that gender discrimination started not in India, but elsewhere. Do you know that it is the Mesopotamia where, in the history of humanity, for the first time, gender discrimination starts? Also, it is found in Egyptian civilization, not to talk about Roman, it is also available in the Greece. In comparison to such cultures, empires which flourished in other parts of the world, India has always honored her women. Our ancestors provided equal status to women in their era. Our Vedas are evident. You know, in the Rig Veda, we find four or five occurrences of the term Dampati. Dampati means the couple who have equal rights on the property, on the house where they are living together. And another thing, you already know about the tradition of Swamvara, the tradition of Swamvara. How old it is? We know about Panchali, that means Draupadi's Swamvar, Sita's Swamvar, participated in that. Bhagwan Ram, Lord Rama participated, but not on. It does not begin from the Rama with the Rama. Rama's grandfather, King Aja, also participated in a Swamvara, and she uh, uh, married her queen in the Vidarbha, Nagpur region. Why I'm mentioning Vidarbha? Because it's a clue that the civilization in the Vidarbha region or the Nagpur region could be as old as it is there in northern India around Ayodhya. It's a clue to our archaeologists to work more. Anyway, we'll discuss all these points later on. Let us give a big hand to Dr. Mehajyoti Sangle. Let me invite her to enlighten us with her lecture. Dr. Mehajyoti Sangle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very by receiving your very warm welcome. Thank you, Lalit sir. This topic is very dear to my heart because as a historian, Indian women's participation in the freedom struggle in various phases, they have participated in all this the types of this the movement, right from the revolutionary movement, royal women, they have also took the part at the armed forces. Then the revolutionary women, they have this the did a remarkable extraordinary work. But still, in Indian history, the historians as well as the feminists, they did not acknowledge their contribution in the freedom struggle movement. We are celebrating 75th year of this, the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So many academic institutions and this the radio and the government bodies has celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. But the very few of these the lectures are devoted of the women's participation in the freedom movement struggle. So today's lecture, I am covering of this the women's participation, and their voices are totally silent in the mainstream of the history. Right from this the 1947 and 1950s, there are so many historians have started the writing of the history of India, writing of the freedom struggle of movement of in India. But somewhere the women's names are totally missed out. Somewhere there's the women's names, though that the women's names are there, but the Women's are the from this the leaders family, but they are not mentioned their names, the proper names, or the not as there's the always in the Indian patriarchal society, while there's the woman as acknowledged not by her own name, but it's she has acknowledged by she is a daughter of someone, she is a wife of someone, she is a mother of someone, but her own identity is totally missed out. And in the same pattern, her own identity is missed out, though she has contributed a lot of the extraordinary work in the freedom struggle movement. And that's why in mainstream of Indian history, we have missed out their names or their work or the contribution is totally ignored or neglected. But the sufferings and thus the patient and thus their hard work has totally remarkable. So without their contribution, Indian freedom struggle movements, the story of Indian freedom struggle movement, the history of Indian freedom struggle movement is totally accomplished. Now I can share my the PowerPoint. The title of my today's talk is The Silent Voices of Women and Their Participation in India's Freedom Struggle. So just I mentioned this, the women's are totally one. The cover page of this, I selected three photographs. One is this is the our Indian flag, which is on this the leads of the Red Fort. This is the another procession during this the Gandhian Satyagraha, where all these the Indians, male, women, then the children's, old age peoples, they are gathering on the Indian fort. And then the last one and the down one is the all women, which are we can see is they are in their traditional saris, mostly in the 9 yard saris of the women's. And this the women they are mentioning some flags in her hand, and this the on the it's not a flag, it's some slogan is in this one, but we can see the thousands of the women they are participated in the silently of this the morchas of this one, and which is the during the Gandhian Satyagraha, women has come out from their houses, and participated in this the non-violence satyagrahas. So these three photographs, I feel these are the worthful for the today's presentation. When we are mentioning the Indian freedom struggle, which has the British has founded their empire in this in India in 1757 after the Battle of the Plassey, and when this the Battle of Plassey has mentioned, nowadays the historian has mentioned the Battle of Buxar is also the one of the first major steps where the British has established the whole empire in India. But the till the 1880, the whole of India has not captured because in 1880 there is a great remarkable historian, great remarkable history that the downfall of the Maratha Empire, and then we can say that the British has that one. But British has started their imperialistic policy with many different approaches. Divide and rule is one approaches, imperialistic policy to approaches. So we can say the series of these the historic moments has memorable events has take place. Some are the organized, some are the unorganized, but these are the mass moments are there. It affected Indian people by both of the internal as well as the external factors. Internally and externally factors, which I mentioned that financially, economically, they are exploited by this the British, and the honor of that one, they have this the earlier during the medieval period, they got so many lands as a grant, as a donation, as a gift, but due to the Inam Commission and all these the British policies, they lost their lands, they lost their honor, they lost their and they became a poorer and poorer because unemployment is a major issue during this the period. So Indian struggle movement, Indian freedom struggle movement is has there are a lot of the various layers of this the movement, which has the enhanced Indian nationalism, because earlier Indian nationalism was not, we can mention, because there are the many dynasties rule in India, and a lot of this, the provincial and regional states and the princely states were there. So there was not the whole unity of the nation. So the, we can say this, the British power or the British Empire or the British rule is also the one factor to enhance the Indian nationalism. So the Indian nationalism has emerged during the late 19th century, the Indian, which is an instant of the territorial nationalism. Territorial nationalism, which is the for the territory of this one, and it is a concept during the Indian independence movement, which has campaigned for independence from British rule. So it's a territorial nationalism which is inclusive of all the people of India, which has the, despite their diversity, multiple cultures are there, ethnicity is different, linguistic patterns are different, religious backgrounds are different, but all the people come under the one of the unity for this, the one of this, the enemy, or they have mentioned that the, to overthrow the British rule from the India. And Indians felt like one, and they tried to overthrow the foreign rule. So the late 19th century saw the emergence of the Indian nationalism, and Indian nationalism developed as a concept during the Indian independence movement, which is the instant of that one. So that when the nationalist struggle in India against the British colonial rule, they are brought about the political mobilization of each man and woman in India. So the patriarchal society become the subordinate, because the women were living in India, and India has adopted patriarchal society. So many states, in the south, they are the matriarchal society, but in the patriarchal society, women's position is the subordinate positions. And because of the subordinate position, women did not have this the so many of this the freedom in various fields, and participation of women within the public life is a very, very remarkable change of the women's life, as well as the in the India's as a nation. So the women, those who has the subordinate position in society, subordinate position in the family, they did not have this the right to take the to the move from one place to another. They did not have the right to. They deny the right of the education. They denied to this the to give their opinion. They did not take the decisions also. So such type of the, so very, very subordinate positions in the society as well as in the political life, and these women has participated in the freedom struggle movement, which is the totally opposite structure of the field. What is the opposite structure? That they are living in the patriarchal structure where they are totally denominated, totally neglected, and they can come from their domestic duties, from this the public area, from this the political area. So they are come aware about the opposite structure of the field. These women, they came from the liberal homes, conservative families. They are women were participated from urban centers, rural area. Some women are the single, some are the married women. Young children are also involved in this the movement. That the old women also came forward and joined the struggle against the colonial rule. Then the because of all this happening, because in the 19th century, Indian Renaissance has the started during the period, and so many social reformers, Savitri Bai Phule, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, then the Maharshi Karve was there. So many Indian social reformers, they came forward and they have started to provided, they have started to give this the education to this the Indian women, and through the education, these are the parallel movements of the social reform movements. That of the social reform, these are the parallelly, they started to develop the, they started to take out the women through their the seclusion period or the isolation phases. Simultaneously, role of press has also played a very important, and thus the women's are the totally appeals to some progressive ladies. But the movement to free the country of its foreign rulers, they attracted folks from all classes, all communities, both sexes, male, female, young, old. The women are coming from the all the religions. There are the Hindu women, there are the Muslim women, there are the Christian women, and there are the Jewish women also. So the women participated in all levels, all dimension, and all types of movement of the freedom struggle. So the during this the role of press is very important factor of this one, which is useful as a powerful tool for the distributing ideas of the citizen of India against the British rule. The origin of the press in India is the James Augustus Hickey, which is considered the father of Indian press. He started the Bengal Gazette in the year of the 1780, but it was served in the very limited masses for the one. And simultaneously, James August Hickey, the year of 1872, as it was the critical of the British government. With the increasing number of the newspaper, the government became very accountable, and they have started to watch on this the press. Therefore, it brought into action several acts in order to suppress the newspapers. So the many nationalist list of journals published during this period, they are spread the ideas of the liberty, justice, and the patriotism among the people of the country. Media played a very significant role in gathering people. Though the people were illiterate, the people collect the newspaper from some paper, some of these the sources, and these sources when they are come out of this one, they are gathered in the common places in the urban as well as rural area, and they read the newspaper each and every event, and from this the newspaper, the patriotism among the people has increased throughout the country. So the people gather to fight for the freedom, and they have they have understood this the what are the going on in this the country, and what are this the Indian national leaders they are doing the sum of this the different of the criteria of that one. So many newspaper emerged during these years, as well as the vernacular newspaper also there, and we can get very distinguished and fearless journalists are there. For example, there's the we I'm just taking some of the names of the newspapers that the Hindu and the Swadesh Mitram has the editor and published by the G. Subramaniam Iyer. Then the Bengali, another newspaper under the Surendranath Banerjee. Voice of India has published under the Dadabhai Nauroji. Amrut Bazar Patrika, where does the Sisir Kumar Ghosh, then the Motilal Ghosh, and they have published the Indian Mirror under the N.N. Sen. Then we can say in the Maharashtra that the Gopal, this one, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Agarkar, Lokmanya Tilak, and so many distinguished national leaders come forward to publish the newspaper. And the newspaper has played an important role to awake the people through this the Indian nationalism, awake the people against the British policy, because the British has implemented so many policy, and the people should understand this the policies and all this. So the Kesri was in Marathi, Maratha is the in English, where the Agarkar and the Bal Gangadhar Tilak has worked on it as editor of that one. Then the Sudharak was there, Hindustan is there, and many newspapers are there. And once a time it has come that the British has started the suppress of their newspaper. British understood that the due to the role of the due to the praise work of the press, that the people started awakening through against the British, and that's why there are the lot of this the suppression acts was the followed for this one. And during the newspapers that they played the part in educating, it's some type of the informal education, They spread the nationalist idea. In 1824, Rajaram Mohan Rai had protested against the resolution restricting the freedom of the press. Dadabhai Nauroji has mentioned as the drain of theory, how this the British has exploited Indians through the economic way. So the role of press is very, very important during this one. As well as the education and the social reformer is the another part of this one, where this the women's has little bit aware about this the British policy, and because of these things are there, women's are the totally as the vernacular place, they are emerged under the different of the pattern of this one. So the impact of this the role of press on this movement was not limited to the cities or the towns. It is the extended to the rural areas, villages, or this one. So the newspapers are also reached remote villages. Some newspapers were banned, but somehow they are reached to the masses, where each news items and editorial would be read and discussed thoroughly to in the local libraries, in the local places, in the one. And hence this the libraries has also involved in one of this the popular literally or the library movement, which is the during this period. So that's why the women's are little bit awareness of that one. I'm just talking of this the role of press and this one after the 1857 revolt was there. And before the 1857 revolts, women's also participated in different of the ways of that one. So these women's they participated. They are the totally silent voices. So voices of the women's contribution to the Indian freedom struggle movement, they become a silent in the mainstream of the historiography, which is the feminists did not focus on this subject. Their roles and participation are ignored and their voices are totally silenced. Their roles and they are totally, their work has totally neglected or it is not recorded. It is recorded in this the government documents. It is recorded in that one, but their violence is totally silenced. They were faceless. They were nameless. She is the wife of someone. She is the daughter of someone, but her name is totally missed out in this the recordings. So history of freedom struggle mention very few names of women. Those are the very very particular. They have the work on the with the women. So, for example, some leaders are there, their wives are there, their daughters are there, their names are the mentioned in the mainstream of history. But there were the thousands and millions of the women participated in all phases of Indian freedom movement. They are participated armed forces, revolutionary movement, till the mass movements. Women, those who are the royal families, they are also took the all this the leadership quality in their hand, and they have struggled and they have actually struggled with the armed armaments with the British. Their role has not been recorded in the history, but their names are beyond the memory of the people of a nation. The list of great women whose names have gone down in history for their dedication and undying devotion to the service of India is a long one. When most of the men freedom fighters were in prison, the women come forward and took the charge of the struggle. Sorry. The when I mentioned this that there is a mainstream of history, but the some of the Indian women freedom fighter they have mentioned their work of they have mentioned of this one. They have penned down their own experiences and life story during the freedom struggle. One is this the another Chapman EF who is the historian. He has mentioned the sketches of some distinguishing Indian women in 1891. Then the Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, she has write her memories and her experiments mentioned at I remember in 1921, and this is published in the 1971. Then another of this Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay work is the Awakening of Indian Women in 1939. So she has mentioned this the how this the women are awakened and they have come from the domestic life to the public area, and how they are come forward for giving their blood, for giving their courage for the freedom of the nation. Then the many women freedom fighters wrote their experiences of their life struggle of for the independence. But such pieces are very, very few as per the compared to this the women participated in the freedom struggle. So the historian also focus on their participation is the Geraldine Forbes, she has mentioned in the Woman in Modern India. Then the Judith Brown, she has also discussed of the during the civil disobedience movement, how many the women, she has discussed, analyze of the prisons and the prisoner stories of this, the women participation in this, the Gandhian Satyagraha movement. Then the R.C. Muzumdar has also mentioned somewhere there's the mention of this, the name, but Muzumdar also mentioned a very, very few names of that one. Then the Rohini Gavankar, she has take the oral history project, and she has took the interview of this the Captain Lakshmi Sehgal, who is the captain of this the Azad Hind Force of the Rani Jhansi regiment. Then another she has also written another book of this the in English also on the Rani Jhansi regiment of the Azad Hind Force. Then Y.D. Phadke, who is the who has the historian as well as a political studies. He is a written as a political studies. He has taken the oral history project, and he has collected so many, find out this the so many government archives, and he has written one book in the Marathi, that is the Nahi Chira Nahi Panti, and he has discussed all these the missing women which are the silent in the historical documents and records, and he has take out their names. So there are the regional studies also covered through the oral history. The Professor Indu Baga has mentioned on the Punjab women's in the Punjab who has participated in this one. And such of the regional stories or the regional histories are developed nowadays after this the 1975. So I mentioned this the women's participation or the women's contribution in freedom struggle movement. It's a very, very vast topic. So I put this the sum of the phases of that one. So the first phase I mentioned the before the revolt of the 1857, revolt of the 1857, just like the other Savarkar has mentioned that the revolt of 1857 is the first independence of the India. But the before the 1857 revolt, there are the women, those who are come out and they had the fight with the armed forces. There are the royal women, there are the queens, begums. Some of this the tribal people also come forward, and the tribal they have made a Sashastra Lada with this the very very armed forces, revolutionary for fearful this one. So these remains, I put this the one of the landmark of the before the revolt of 1857. Then the second phase is the revolt of 1857. Third, I has mentioned the age of the Gandhian Satyagraha. And Gandhian Satyagraha as well as the revolutionary movement, they are the totally contemporary and parallel movements. But the whole philosophy of this the revolutionary movement and the Gandhian Satyagraha is totally far away. Two different extreme points are there. And the last one, I'm just taking the till the 1947 Indian National Army, that is the Azad Hind Fauj, which has been established by the Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So these are the phases of the woman contribution, and after the 1947 also there are the many social and political movement women has participated in a large number. But the phases of this the women participation in this one, it's a very very vast topic, and that's why I have I have choose this the phases which we can justify their participation, their contribution in some way. So the before 1857, mostly the women's came from the royal family, and the women's participate in India's freedom struggle. was as early as in 1870s. The Bhimabai Holkar, who is the first woman to wield a sword against the British. So the Bhimabai Holkar, she is the daughter and the granddaughter of this the great women, that's the Ahilyabai Holkar, and she fought bravely against the British Colonel Malcolm and defeated him in the guerrilla warfare. She was named Bhima because her name was Bhima, because has mentioned because her indomitable boldness. She was well versed in all warfares but excelled in the guerrilla warfare. Many women, including Rani Channamma of Kittur, Rani Begum Hazrat Mahal of Awadh, they fought against British East India Company in the 19th century. And this is the fight, this is the opposition by the royal women before the 30 years of the First War of Independence of 1857. So the Bhimabai Holkar we have mentioned here is the first woman to wield the sword against the British. And see the her painting that she is horse doing on the horse and the sword in her hand and very fearful and very different emotions has expressed on her face, and that's why does the she's a daughter of the Yashwantrao Holkar, Maharaja of Indore, and the granddaughter of the Queen Ahilyabai Holkar. She was the elder. She fought bravely against this one, just I mentioned, and this is the her photograph, which is the painting of this one. Then the Rani Channamma of the Kittur, who is the very small state in the south. So the she is the Indian queen of the Kittur and one of the first female rulers to rebel against the British rules. And this is the princely state in Karnataka. She led an armed resistance against the British East India Company in 1824 in the defense of the doctrine of lapse in an attempt to maintain Indian control over the region in which she defeated them. But she was dead in the imprisonment of the Second Rebellion by the East India Company on 13 July 1830. She became a folk hero in Karnataka and symbol of independence movement in India. Then the War of Independence, that the major causes of the revolt of 1857, there is the doctrine of lapse, ill treatment with the Bahadur Shah Jafar, there is the annexation of Oudh and the very biased policy by the British officers and the very different judicial rules and regulations were imposed on this the princely state and on the kings and the queens of the Indian. They are scattered in the throughout the India in very different places. So the major the role played by women, they are the in the War of Independence of very creditable, and it's invited by admiration even leaders of the revolt. Now, when we are mentioning this, the Rani of Ramgarh, she is the Rani of Ramgarh. She has also named as the Avantibai Lodi or Avantibai Lodi. She died on the 20th March 1858. She was an Indian freedom fighter and the queen of the Ramgarh. Nowadays, present it's a Dindori, as mentioned. Dindori is in the Madhya Pradesh. So, an opponent of the British East India Company during the Indian Rebellion of 1857. So, information concerning about her is sparse and mostly comes from the folklore. Then the Rani Jindal Kaur, who is the she is the regent of the Sikh Empire from 1843 until the 1846. She was the youngest wife or the widow of the first Maharaja of the Sikh Empire, that the Ranjit Singh, and the mother of the last Maharaja, that Dulit Singh. She was the widow of she was the founder of the, she was the boundaries stretched from the Maharaja Ranjit Singh's empire is very extended one. and it is the boundary stretch from Kabul to Kashmir. So till the borders of Delhi, the empire has the reaches. She led a spirited resistance to the encroachment of the British into the Punjab, but was eventually forced to surrender. Professor Indu Baga has mentioned, who is the Chandigarh-based historian who specialized in this, the history of the Punjab in a various scale. Then the Begum Zalkar Bai is the she is the woman soldier who has played an important role in Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi. She eventually rose to a position of a prominent advisor to the Queen of Rani of Jhansi. At the height yeah, Begum Zalkarbai, and she has also advisor to the Rani Jhansi. At the height of the siege of the Jhansi, she disguised herself as the queen and fought on her behalf on the front. She is allowing the queen to escape safely out of the fort. In addition, she was a close confidant and the advisor to the queen, playing a key role, playing a very important role in the analysis of the battle alongside the Lakshmi. Then again, Begum Hazrat Mahal. Begum Hazrat Mahal has the also known as the Begum of Awadh. She was the second wife of the Nawab of Awadh, Wajid Ali Shah, and the regent of Awadh in 1857 to 1858. She is known for the leading role she had been in rebellion against the British East India Company during the Indian rebellion of the 1857. Then one there are the many names are there. The Maina Peshwe is the second daughter of this the Nana Sahib Peshwa of the second of the Nana Sahib Peshwa, and she was the very great and brave contribution in this the revolt of 1857. That she was only the 30-year old, and as the British asked her, the officer asked her many questions, but she has stayed in the fort only, and because she has not she has denied to give the any answer, and she kept the mum, and that's why the British officer burned a 30-year-old Maina Kumari alive by tying her to a tree, and that's why her work or her this type of this the dedication and the participation which has the torch of revolution would never be extinguished. Then Azzezan Begum, who is the also known as the Zinat Begum, was the favorite wife of the Mughal emperor on behalf of her consort. And the Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar, she was suspected of poisoning the British resident in Delhi, Thomas Metcalfe, which is the one of article as published by the Hindu newspaper during this the 2004, and they are mentioning that this is the suicidal case by the British officer, and who has uh, given her poison, and that she died in this the verse. Then there are the Baizhabai is there, Chauhan Ran is there, then Tapassuni Maharani is there. They are participated with their armed forces, with their revolutionary forces, led their troops into the battlefield, even though spread over the vast territory and widely popular among the people. And the most important, these are the royal women with the armed forces, Begum Judan Kaur, Begum Avantibai Ramgarh, and Begum Zinat Mahal. Then these are the photographs of Lakshmibai, then Hazrat Mahal and Jhalkar Bai. So all these the women they face this the very revolutionary. And Jhalkar Bai, we can mention that uh, the contribution of the Jhalkar Bai, we can mention that the Rani Lakshmi Bai, which has the great of this the warrior, and she has created of this the women regiment in her military force. And women as also there's a common women also encouraged by this the Rani Lakshmibai, who has fight against the British by the armed forces, and that's why the Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who has when he has created Azad Hind Fauj, he has given the name of the Rani Jhansi of Lakshmibai, or to the women's regiment. And that is why the Jalkarbai is the, I am taking Jalkarbai is not from the royal women, but she is the advisor to the Rani Lakshmibai. Then these are the again the some photographs of this the Kittu Rani Chennamma. This is the paintings are there. Then the Durgabai Deshmukh is there, and Rani Gadinadi. This is the another women is there. Then the Rani Sahasya Lakshmibai encouraged and supported because of her bravery, her enthusiasm, and this the Mary Jhansi Nahi Dongi, Khub Mardani Ladi Jhansi Bai. There are so many songs in the folk tales and in the on her courage, and her courage inspired the many Indian male as well as the female as well as the those who are the royal people. They are also very surprised and is the inspired of her protest. She was the leading figure of revolt of 1857. She was born and brought up with this the Nana Sahib Peshwe and these peoples, and that's why the protested. She was totally protested against the doctrine of lapse. She refused to surrender Jhansi, and she fought bravely afire as a male during the revolt of 1857. She left the Jhansi fort because she did not want to take this the so many brutal steps by the British officer, and she left the Jhansi, and she has gunshot in the Gwalior. She died in the battlefield fighting with the British forces at Gwalior, and she built up the women forces in her military troops. Her courage inspired by many Indians to rise against the one. And because of her courage, so many British officers as well as the Indian leaders, they have pointed her work as a very remarkable, very fierce the work, and it's inspired throughout the country. So the Vinayak Damodar Savarkar has mentioned the Queen of Jhansi is a radiant flame created by the eruption of 1857. And the British officer Sir Hugh Ross, he has mentioned, although the lady that the Rani Jhansi, although a lady, she was the bravest and the best military leader of the rebels, a man among the mutinies. Those are the mutinies during the revolt of 1857. She was the bravest and the best military leader. 20 years after her death, Colonel Malleson wrote in a history of Indian mutiny, which was published in London in 1878, that he has mentioned, quote, whatever her faults in British eyes may have been, her countrymen will ever remember, that she was driven by ill treatment into rebellion, and that she lived and died for her country. We cannot forget her contribution for India. So the revolt of 1857 was not successful, though the so many factors were there. There are the weak leaderships are there. It is not plan and organizing. Lack of unity we can mention of that one. So it's the northern part and the southern part is also not come. Is this central part is also not participate in this revolt of 57. It could not impress the entire country of all the groups and classes of Indian society. Most rulers of Indian states and big zamindars, middle classes people, they were the selfish to the score and the fearful of the British might refused to join. Middle classes people refused to. They did not. They feel that these are the war for the royal people. Mostly women surprised the work and role played by the royal women and their women army. So that in during this the Royal Army, there are this the before 1857, there are the revolt of the tribal revolts. In Bihar, Singham district, there were the revolts of the Munda and Manaki tribes, which is the totally imprisoned and tortured by the police. So the tribal community is the community during the ancient and the during the medieval period. Tribal community will not touched by the medieval rulers, but when the British has started this one, they have started to the exploitation to the tribal people. So the Bunda and the Manaki tribes where there's the one. Then the Santhal rebellion in 1855. Then in the Santhal rebellion, there are the 45 Santhali women were imprisoned in the Birbhum jail. Bills of Khandesh in the Khandesh in Maharashtra, the bills has they are opposed of the British rule and they have started their revolt in 1857. Bill women were also captured and imprisoned. The commissioner of police wrote to the about the field women how they have fought against them with a very limited arms against the British officer. So here the commissioner wrote the Home Secretary to the government of Bombay on June 1858 that the Bill women are just troublesome and they are mischievous as the men. They should be retained as hostages, and if we can make that the hostages, we cannot release till the Bhagavati and other knights are captured. So the tribal women also took a very great part in this. Along with the male counterparts of that one. Then the revolutionary movement, then the Birsa Munda is another tribal revolt is there. For this, the Birsa Munda has started rebellion till the 4 years. Then the Sali and her friend Mark Munda, who along with their daughters-in-law and granddaughters, they took part in Birsa's rebellion. In the Manipur also, there are the tribals. They revolted against the British officer. They were the Nagas, and Jadodang is as the leader who hanged on the August 29, 1931. So the Rani Gudinelu, who continued to lead the armed struggle of Nagas from Manipur. And this Rani, she was captured in October 1932 and which has imprisoned till the 15th August 1947. And after we got the independence, this Rani Gudinelu has released. Then there are the revolutionary movements to the freedom struggle movement. These are the mark the beginning of the India's freedom struggle, which is the early phase of the revolutionary movement in India, which is in Bengal, Maharashtra, Punjab, UP, Orissa, Bihar, and Madras provinces. But it prominently operated in Bengal, Maharashtra, and Punjab, as these regions are more politically active than other parts of the country. Just I mentioned the revolutionary movement as well as the Gandhian Satyagraha, there where the parallel movements are there one. So women in the revolutionary movement is a very great chapter of the Indian freedom struggle movement. These women are the literated, they are educated, and this the earlier there's the revolutionary movements also. The women's participation. Many main leaders of the revolutionary movement, they were extremely reluctant for the admitting the women into their secret societies. So women that the so many women has mentioned these are the in their letters and in their the one. So Vaidip Phadke he has mentioned with the references that the women were actively participated up in, though they are the reluctant of that one. They conveyed the coded secret messages to their male colleagues They provided food and shelter to absconders. They smuggle and conceal weapons, guns, and revolvers. They are circulated proscribed books and literature and pamphlets. They provided financial assistance. So the women in the revolutionary movement, they work in the nature of their work is a very, very different than the other movements. The revolutionary movement marked this the early phase is the India. Sorry. So women in the art society, they recruited and trained. Armed society were the always the secret society. They recruited and trained young girls for revolutionary actions. Some of women helped in preparing explosives and manufacturing bombs also. They participated in political debates. They took care of the wounded revolutionaries. Some women tried to kill British officers either by firing shots or throwing bombs. Pritilata Vaddedar, Kalpana Dutt, Suniti Chaudhary, Shanti Ghosh, Shanti Ghosh, Bina Das, Ujjwala Mujumdar, they actually participated in the firing of the shots or the throwing bombs. Then Durgabai Vora, Sushila Didi Ghosh, Parul Mukherjee, Naniwala Mukherjee, Savitri Chakravarti, then the Prabha Biswas, they were imprisonment. And this the during this the revolutionary movement, this the British officer has all these the activities are going in the secret way, secret motion. So the mostly this the leaders they were the pointed out, and such leaders were went to the underground. So the British officer has denied to give this the shelter, and they have announced this the people those who will give the shelter, then they are also the make as a crime against the British officers, and that's why so many people they have tried to away from all these the officers. But women they are very very supporting, and they are the very very suffered also. So some women they have come forward, and they have uh, any widow women or the any of the this one revolutionary activists, they have given this the support with them, but they're mentioning that they are their wives, and is in a another way, and that's why they have mentioned all those the things are there. So the revolutionary movement is the little bit we can say that it made a valuable contribution to the growth of nationalism in India. The sacrifice and martyrdom of the revolutionaries did not go west. It appealed to the masses, the Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Surya Singh, Rajguru, etc. They become household name of the Indian people and aroused the patriotism among the masses. Then there are the we can say the some women they are not prison during the revolutionary movement, but they are supporting and suffering. Some of the few names I want to mention here: the widows of the Damodar Sapekar, Yashoda Savarkar, who is then the mother of the Bhagat Singh, that the Vidyavati. And these are the women, they are not in prison, but they are suffered because of their family members were involved in this, the revolutionary movement. So the next and the last phase I can here want to cover that the women in Gandhian Satyagraha, which is the totally different political ideas. In the revolutionary, they are the totally armed forces, but in the Gandhian Satyagraha, Mahatma Gandhi has mentioned they as the non-violence movements. It is totally absent of the violence. And these two pictures, I first one picture I have mentioned earlier, and then another picture is this one. It is the totally has shown the masses of the people that come uh, on the roads and the streets, and they gather and they process in a very very silent way. They did not have any weapons in their hand, they did not have any uh, another things, that they are the fearless, and they have adopted the non-violence or the ahimsa for their protection in the all the Gandhian Satyagraha movement. So the woman in the Gandhian Satyagraha, as per the phases, is the fifth phase of this one. So age of Gandhian Satyagraha, Gandhi started Satyagraha, a new outlook to protest the British. This age was a very, very vast movement. Mahatma Gandhi's Satyagraha movements inspired more and more masses of women to break the linkages and the orthodoxy of the patriarchal norms of society. They came out of their domestic duties and homes for contribution of freedom struggles. Indian women who joined the national movement belonged to educated and liberal families. They were from rich as well as the poor family. They were from cities and the villages. They were from elite peoples, elite women, and there were ordinary women. They are the women as well as those from the all walk of life, all caste, all religions, and all communities. Women has participated. They come forward and they took participated in satyagraha. They are from all section of society. And what is the nature of their one? Non-violence. Did not reply or did not protest of any of the British lathi charge or any British protestants. So the women played a multi-dimensional roles during the satyagrahas. They were active in agitations, picketers, volunteers. They were nurses, processionalists, planners. They were organizers in the Gandhi Satyagraha movement. Sometimes there's the British imprison of the national leaders. So women took part in this one, and the women leader took the leadership in these the movements. So we remember these women with extraordinary courage and commitment to bring a change in this the whole nationalist movement. Mahatma Gandhi had once said that the part played by women is indiscriminate. So the during the freedom movement, these innumerable women entered the public domain to fight against all the obscurantist role models such as Dr. Subbalakshmi, Dr. Durgabai Deshmukh, Srimati Brudala Sarabhai, Srimati Pushpaben Mehta, Srimati Kamla Devi Chattopadhyay, Sarojini Naidu, Rukaiya Shakawat Hussain, Dr. Ushaben Mehta, Sarojini the Kasturba Gandhi, Vijayalakshmi Pandit, and Annie Besant. There are the women from the foreign countries. They also took the participated in Indian freedom struggle in under the Gandhian movement. So their inspiration and more contribution building also so that the future generation of girls and women could get in well and empowerment. Yeah, Gandhiji's encouragement and support is an unbelievable level because the Gandhiji has mentioned so many different one. The wife of the Gandhiji, Kasturba Gandhiji, is also one of these the great inspiration to all these the women. Gandhiji as one of the declaration of the Supreme Court of South Africa, he is quote, a nation that cannot protect its women's honor and the interest of its children does not deserve to be called by that name. Such people are not a nation but mere brutes. Gandhiji, under the another ones he has mentioned, woman is more fitted than men to make exploration and their bolder actions in non-violence. So the Gandhijis believe that the non-violence movement, the women are more patient and they are more fearful than the men. And that's why he has always supported and encouraged women. He was reached, responded with many satyagrahi women. He himself has talked with the women. So many Satyagrahi women sent him letters, and he has also replied their letters. Very, very touchable of this one. Women shared their experiences with him boldly, though they did not understand ahimsa or non-violence. So Gangaben, one of women who wrote to later to Gandhiji and narrated incidents how police attacked by lathis on many women. So she has written to the Gandhiji of the lathi charge, explaining inhuman lathi charge on women by the British police. So she has mentioning, I'm quoting, In fact, that the Gangabai mentioned the Gandhiji in her letter. In fact, I took it upon myself to organize the procession by placing the ashram girls at the head of small batches of women coming from various parts of the town. Then, in some of this, she is mentioning all the batches. Where are these coming? Who are there? Are this one? I was also asking this passerby to keep on one side of the road as so as not to obstruct the procession. So they are also taking care of this, the whether does the road discipline will not be disturbed. When all of a sudden the police came down upon us with a shower of lathi blows, I came in for a big share of them, receiving several on the head, arms, back, face, and ears. So through this later we can see this the lathi charge by the police as different parts of the women's bodies. Blood streamed out from wounded cause on my head, but I did not budge an inch and asked the other sister to sit down. Saying that I would not be deterred, the Fauzdar came and arrested me and handed me over to the police. Whenever I found Shakira Ben, Kalavati, Padma, Lakshmi, Madhu, who had all had their share of the blows, my head was still bleeding, and I sat down, allowing the sun's rays to fall on the bleeding part. I was perfectly peaceful. Again, she has mentioned that we were taken to the hospital where we found Maitri, Lalita, and other women are also admitted in the hospital. My wound was then dressed, and it was the doctor told me that 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch. The others were treated but were later turned out evidently because they had chosen to arrest only Vasumati and me. Then she has mentioned that one we are in lockup. My wound is being dressed daily, and I am quite happy and peaceful. I have my prayers regularly. She is mentioning her daily routine in prison to the Mahatma Gandhi. I have my prayers regularly, but have not yet been given my takli. It was on this occasion that I understood somehow the meaning of ahimsa. I was quite fearless when the blows were coming down upon me, and I assure you that I had no hatred or anger in me. Even now, I feel no resentment towards the police, and it is growing upon me that we shall achieve success only to the extent we cultivate the spirit of ahimsa. So many women, those who are participated in Satyagrahi movement of Gandhiji, they even did not know the meaning and the depth meaning of the ahimsa. But whatever the Gandhiji mentioned and what is the Gandhiji encouraged them, they are doing for in any cost. So in her other letters, that it also mentioned that the in some cases the assaults were outrageous, many being kicked on their chest with the heels of the policeman's boots. Not one budged an inch. Everyone stood unflinching at her post. Wherefrom came this sudden access of courage and strength? I wonder. God was with us, I'm sure. He gave us the strength. So these are letters as the returned by the Satyagrahi women which has participated in Satyagraha to the Gandhiji. And Gandhiji has mentioned blessings to the Gandhiji has sent a letter to Gangaben on the after the reaching this later on the 2nd February of 1931, and he has mentioned, Chiranju Gangaben, how shall I compliment you? You have shown that you are what I had always thought you were. How I would have smiled with pleasure to see your sari made beautiful with stains of blood. See the words and the encouragement. is a very, very different way. I got excited when I knew about this atrocity, but was not pained in the least. On the contrary, I felt happy. So, such of the correspondence, such of the personally touch, such of the encouragement, women come forward and forward, and they took the part. They come from the all the domestic life very, very bravely. They took part in the all this the Satyagrahi movement of the Gandhian Satyagraha movement. The Gandhiji started non-cooperative movement for self-rule and the non-cooperation movement. Another some of these the women, they are the Sarla Devi, Muthulakshmi Reddy, Sushila Iyer, Rajkumari Amrutkar, Sucheta Kripalani, and Aruna Asafali are some of the women. They are participated in non-violent movement. Kasturba Gandhi and women from the Nehru family, women from the Dadabhai Nauroji, their daughters, the Kamla Nehru, Vijayalakshmi Pandit, Swarup Rani also participated in the national movement. Lado Rani Jutsi and her daughter of Manmohini, Shama, and Janak, they led the movement in Lahore. So the ordinary women, as well as the educated and highly educated women, also played a very, very great important role in the Gandhian movement. So the civil disobedient and Dandi Salt March is also the another one is the great chapter of the Indian national movement where this the women come forward and they accompanying with this the Gandhiji on the Dandi Salt March, which is the walking this one. It was decided that India would celebrate 26 January as Independence Day all over the country. The British government tried to repress the movement and resorted to the brutal firings, killing thousands of people. Thousands were arrested along with Gandhiji and Jawaharlal Nehru. But the movement did not stop and it spread all over country. The British government agreed that total 75,000 people were arrested in the civil disobedience movement. Out of 75,000 people, 3,630 women were arrested during civil disobedience movement. But this figure is not the right, as there are the many thousands and thousands of women has participated. The next another the very very great chapter of this the Indian freedom circle was the Quit India movement. In 1942, this the Mahatma Gandhi declared that I want freedom immediately. This very night before dawn, if it can be had, we shall free India or die in the attempt. We shall not live to see the perpetuation of our slavery. And during this, the Quit India movement, there are the so many parallel movements are there. The parallel government is the Satara. Patri Sarkar was there. In the North India is also the parallel government has also started. And the British arrested all in national leaders on the same night. And the Quit India movement has gone to the movement in the masses movement. So British attacks brutal repression against the non-violent satyagrahi. The Quit India resolution directly addressed women as disciplined soldiers of Indian freedom. They required to sustain the flame of war. So there are the Usha Mehta who has committed the patriot and setup of radio transmitter, who is the called the voice of the freedom of the to disseminate the mantra of the freedom of war. So she has was the underground of this the radio transmitter. Many of us don't know that there were hundreds of and thousands of women who fought side by side with their male counterparts. They fought with true spirit and undismayed courage. So here I can come to the conclusion. I have mentioned it's a very very vast one, and even this the mentioning their names also is a very very great task and very very difficult task to collect their names from different oral history project from the different regional history, and it's a very very difficult and challenging task is there. So the conclusions, I mentioned that the women's they are totally subordinate position in the patriarchal society, but they broke. away from various restrictions and they got out of their traditional home domestic oriented roles and responsibilities also. Mothers, they left their children to friends, they kept their children to the neighbors and relatives, but they participated and imprisoned many months in jails. So during 1930s to 1947, so many children they born and brought up with the neighbors or with friends of all them, they did not see their parents so many months and years. They left their professions, they left their jobs. So many women doctors, they left their jobs as a women, as a physicians or the surgeons, and they joined this the Quit India movement. So the partition of women in the freedom struggles and national awakening is simply incredible. It's a very, very praiseworthy. They fought with true spirit and undaunted courage and faced various tortures, exploitations, hardships to earn us the freedom. When most of the main freedom fighters were in the prison, the women come forward to take charge of the struggle during the Gandhian Satyagraha. Many families, both parents were prison. They fought with true spirit and unafraid courage and faced various tortures and exploration hardship to earn us freedom. The royal and queens, we have just discussed all these things, but the end of this, their in the imprisonment is very very fearful and is very very pity one another. So, hundreds and thousands of Indian women dedicated their lives for obtaining freedom of their motherland. They were British police were molested Indian women in many satyagrahis were there. Such cases has come out after the so many days. In Gerardin for Sarsi Muzumdar also blame that the British police officers has molested Indian women satyagrahis during this the satyagrahi movement. So they have also contributed in a very very different way also. Still, they were faceless in history. They were not mentioned with their proper names, and they were in the mainstream. They were the silent voices. Their voices are silent. Their voices are ignored or neglected. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for such a phenomenal speech. This subject is rarely discussed and valued in society. You explained so well that I'm sure now people will aware more about the women's struggle for freedom of India and researchers will use for their research. Ma'am, your insight on and information about vernacular media played an important role to spread freedom struggle throughout the India. We very much pleased to hear the quotes from Rabindranath Tagore and John Kelly's quotes. They are really great. Historian doesn't mention the proper name of women in history, but to listen that there were thousands and millions women participated in freedom struggle is really great. Kapila Devi Chattopadhyay in 1921-1927 she wrote articles. You told about it. It means women wrote articles that period also for freedom struggle. Women participated revolutionary way and other ways too. This is also phenomenal. Before 1857, you mentioned many women like Bhima, Bai Holkar, Chennamma, and many more fought against British. That is incredible. Before that, also before 30 years, Rani Chennamma was the first rebellion and fought against British. Royal women also fought, though to save their dynasty, but they fought against Britishers furiously. British officers' opinions about Queen of Jhansi is very important. This is true. You have mentioned it. Thanks for that. Women from every classes, educated, non-educated, joined and played various role in the freedom fighter. This is also very important that the whole classes are involved in, means women classes also involved in this freedom struggle. This is incredible. Role models like Dr. Subramaniam, Sarojini Naidu, Kasturba Gandhi did a lot of work and encouraged to many in nation. Many women, they are role models of women those days. Ganga Ben's letter, my God, this is truly means goosebumps. Means how she really. Ganga Ben's letter is eye opener. How Britishers behaved with women. Still, her courage and other women's courage is unparalleled. Throughout the India, women participated in every movement against British government. That you have mentioned, every movement against British. Even in Patri Sarkar, also women participated. Women too worked underground. That is unbelievable. Means women also worked underground by taking high risks. It means women sacrifices immensely in freedom struggle of India. Everything they sacrificed and did their job for freedom struggle of India. Ma'am, you miss a lot of things we came to know new things. These are for us. This is incredible. And thanks a lot for this. I thanks to our founder, visionary Lalit Mishra ji, advisor in Amity University, life member of Mohamana Malviya Mission, New Delhi, advisor of Vedic Science Center, BHU, advisor in Yoga Meditation Foundation in USA, and digital architect by profession. We are thankful, sir, for your guidance and vision to make India a Vishwaguru. Thank you, Lalit, sir. Our co-founder of Indology Foundation, Mr. Praveen Mishra ji, executive producer of NDTV, always there are work relentlessly for foundation. We thank you, sir, to you. We are thankful to our Global President, Professor Deebandhu Pandeyji, Gurudevji. His guidance and blessings are valuable for us. I thanks to Vinay sir and Gadendra Rai sir. They helps every manner. All our board of eminence member are great supporters of Indology Foundation. Thanks for your support. I thanks to Mr. Aman and Mr. Shivam, technical support, host, and many more responsibilities they handles with great efforts. I thanks to Sudhanshu ji, Sri Ravindra Goswami ji, Mr. Shivaji, Mr. Ankit ji, and every other team member of Indology Foundation on camera and behind camera. They works a lot. Thank you, audience, for being with us. Now, I request to audience, please subscribe our YouTube channel, like Facebook page and Insta for more scholarly, authentic knowledge about ancient history and every other aspect like science, politics, music, philosophy, environment, sports, etc. of our nation, India. Thank you. Thanks a lot.